This is Naomi Ackerman, coming to you from the Advot offices in Los Angeles, California. Advot is a local nonprofit that uses theater to empower youth to find and use their voices. With Advot, I have spent over a decade working inside the walls of the Los Angeles Juvenile Lockup Facilities, or Juvie, as it's called in slang. When I started this work, I would drive every Thursday to teach the Ripple process. Today, Advot teaches over a dozen classes in multiple sites in LA County. I have had the privilege of meeting the most extraordinary youth inside the walls. Thursday in Juvie is where it started. I invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, take a little walk, and listen. Listen to the voices of these beautiful people. First, through a story I tell about my experiences teaching, followed by a remarkable interview with system-impacted individuals who have all changed their lives and are inspiring beyond measure. I'm so happy you chose to join us today to experience the power of love, forgiveness, redemption, and change. This is Thursdays in Juvie, and now, the show. Youth who've been marginalized and system involved rarely, if ever, get things that they want and like. No one pays attention. No one really cares about them. To me, it was actually always shocking how the smallest acts of kindness that my own children take for granted and a given is a huge deal for the youth I work with. In this episode, the power of kindness is healing. An act of love can actually soften the hardest of hearts. You'll hear how when you genuinely see someone and pay attention to what they like to eat and who they are, they will and can thrive. Chips. I am a Jewish mother. I thrive on feeding. I am from the Middle East. We from the Middle East are offended if you do not eat our food. I served 2 years in the Israeli army. I know what it's like not to have the food you like within reach. I'm a carbs and sugar girl. I love to nosh. And I know what it's like to want something to eat and not be able to have it. In my world, chocolate is a food group. In my work with incarcerated youth, food has played a role in establishing trust, showing my love, proving that my word can be relied upon, and really just filling that sweet need. I used to bring snacks every week, a little bit of a bribe, and a lot about just doing something special for the girls I worked with. This round of workshops, I was not allowed to do that. Somewhere, something happened, as it often does in places like this, and now food is not permitted. I put up a really big fuss. I begged. I nudged. Oh, wow, did I nudge? Finally, the director of the facility agreed and allowed me to bring snacks 3 times. Once, when we reached the midway point of the program. Second time, the day of the final presentation. And the third time, at our last meeting. I take what I can get, and I agree. Today was the midway point. I brought donuts, Taki chips that are very, very hot chips, and lemonade. The very tattooed boy at Vaughn's smiled and said, "Now that's a party. Nothing healthy." I had a pang of guilt about it being unhealthy, but I let it go. I used to have a deal with the kids. Out of every few snacks that I bring, 1 would be healthy. Not because I'm pushing healthy food, I would tell them, but I want to give you an option. I would explain to them that I want to invite them to a possibility of yogurt, fruit, and maybe some granola. It would be cool to have that enter your world, I would say. To this, a 16-year-old who was 5 months pregnant said to me, "This healthy shit, miss, it's actually good." They loved when I brought fresh fruit. I would try to get things I knew they didn't have many chances to taste, like papaya and kiwi. I introduced them to new tastes like passion fruit. It was exciting and funny for them and for me. But today was different. This is a tough group. I wanted them to see that I see them and that I respect them and that I get them. I wanted them to know that I know what will surprise them and make them happy. I so want to comfort them. Oh, how I want to comfort them. So I buy unhealthy food that some people might not approve of. But my girls, well, they are elated. Today we wrote some poetry. It was deep and intense. And we ended with food. We sat around a long table. There was laughter and an abundance of joy. I carefully pour out the chips, half a small bag, in a bowl for each girl. And although I like spicy food, these chips are way too much for me. I'm very careful not to touch anything with my fingers. "Aren't you having some chips, miss?" "Oh, I can't eat this. It's too spicy for me," I say. If it touches my fingers, I'm finished. They think that that's hilarious. And then it's quiet. "Miss, why'd you get it for us if you can't eat it?" "Because you eat it." Again, it's quiet. "Whoa, it's a lot of money for you to get all this for us." "Not really," I say. "All of the food together maybe cost $30. "That's a lot of money." They're adamant. "Wow, miss, this is amazing. Thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh, so many thank yous." And then it happened. The one I've been trying to get to, the one who rarely, if ever, smiles, walked over, stood really close to me, and whispered, "You got me my favorite." I take a deep breath, I look at her, and I smile. "You deserve it. You have been doing a great job, and we're halfway through the program." "You got me my favorite," she says again. And then it came, a smile. I have been waiting 5 weeks. It is the tough ones who I know who have been hurt the most. They are the ones whose trust I need to win. And when they smile, I know that they're ready to let me in. Or at least for a moment, they can give that tough mask of theirs a rest. "Ah," I said, be careful. It is showing. It's showing," I say. "What?" she replies in a panic. "Your smile." That makes her laugh. Finally, she looks her age. "You should do that more often," I say. "You have a beautiful smile." In a heartbeat, she gives me that tough street look. "Don't do that," I say. "Now you look like you're going to steal my car." We both burst out laughing. "You're funny, miss," she says. "And you brought me my favorite food." She smiles again. She cleans up the trash. She takes my bag and she walks me to the office. Quietly. She's happy. So am I. You know, it's the little things. It's an intention. It's actually paying attention. And sometimes it's really as simple as a bag of chips. I challenge you to figure out someone's chips and give it to them. Give them their favorite. Make them smile. I promise you will smile more. Stick around as I speak to one of my former students who has transformed themselves and their lives. I promise you, you will be inspired. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to receive notifications about new shows. Join the Advot Ripple. Make a contribution today. Welcome back. Thank you for joining Thursdays in Juvie. The conversation continues. Today, I am ecstatic. I'm sitting here with Patty Flores, who was one of the participants in the original Thursday in Juvie's groups. And I have had the great honor to be in touch with Patty actually for the last 10 years, kind of off and on. She has been doing amazing things, and I am insanely proud of her. And I'm actually really excited to have her here with me on the screen because she has received her bachelor's degree. And today she is joining us from Smith College, where she's getting a master's degree in clinical social work. So Patty, it is so wonderful to have you here on the show. I'm just ecstatic to have you. Thursdays in Juvie is about telling stories of amazing young women like yourself that I had the privilege of meeting in the LA County Detention Facility, particularly Camp Scudder. So I know that we could spend 3 hours talking about your life because to me, it's just ridiculously amazing what you've overcome and what you've done. But if there are two things that you could share with the people who are listening about your journey and about your life, what would those things be?
So the first thing that comes to my mind is, and first I want to thank you for having me here. So the first thing that comes to my mind is the intersections of my identities and how being an immigrant from El Salvador also, it made me have, many challenges when I left juvenile homes, and also just not being able to find housing and just navigating that, when I was an adult. And now I'm proud to say that I'm getting my master's in social work.
I think you're going to be able to help a lot of people because you have lived experience, and that's brilliant. There's so many intersections of your story, of where you came from, where you were. I know a little bit why you ended up in the juvenile halls and camps. I don't know if you remember that I used to bring snacks when I would come, which we still do now.
Yeah.
And part of bringing snacks for me was, first of all, I'm a Jewish mom, so I love feeding everybody. But I really wanted to make sure that the youth that we worked with and still work with at the Upvote Project are seen. And I feel like so many youth that have stories similar to yours are never seen, or they never get a snack that they actually like. Someone brings them a snack that they think they like. And can you talk a little bit about the importance of being seen? Because I know I feel that that's important, but I wonder what you have to say about that.
Yeah, so I think, especially for us who have been incarcerated, and I could speak also for myself because I was also in foster care. And it's something that we don't really experience, that, being seen by adults in those places, in those facilities. And especially when we're locked up. And I'm just thinking about how, if I were to think back, I think of no one really asking me about my mental health, how I was feeling, how my morning was, and or even how school was. And I think, having that interest for adults to know more about us and being curious about what we like and how to engage with us in conversations as well. And so I think the snacks were also a part of being in community with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I think food does bring community, but you're also, you just added the additional sauce, which is, it's not only seeing people, it's also hearing them. Mm-hmm. And, how do you feel? What do you want? What do you need? Which is very deeply rooted in the curriculum that we do, that we talk about, say what you want, say what you need. And for so many individuals, I mean, I know even, I mean, I think, and I'm correct. I mean, I've seen also in your English has gotten significantly better since when I met you, right? Not that your English wasn't good then, but so many people, so many of the youth that we meet that are incarcerated, actually speaking the language is sometimes hard for them. So it's first seeing them, but also hearing them and hearing their voice. And I know that a lot of times I would see the systems that they're in, if it's foster care or the lockup facilities or their lawyers or the POs, just not hearing the voice, right? Not having something be said. And if you hear someone's voice, then you can see them, then you can support them, then you can teach them. So I know that affected me a lot when I started. And in the video, there's the video that we always show, and you're like, we always end with like, I am amazing, I am beautiful, I am worthy. And you're like yelling that so loud. And I always like smile when I watch it today, because that video reminds me how important it is to say those things. And we don't stop and say them enough. And I thank you. I totally agree with that. So I know that it was a long time ago, and we're bringing up these stories from blogs that I wrote. It's almost 6 years ago already, 7 years ago. And there's so many news stories, and I don't know if you can pull back. And I know that you've had lots of mentors and people who have helped you besides the Ed Vote Project. But is there something that you remember that you learned that when you were with us that maybe changed your perspective or helped you later on when you were going in life? And it can be general, it can be specific. And I know that it was kind of a long time ago, so you can kind of think about that.
Yeah. Well, I learned how to communicate my feelings through art. And also just, being able to communicate my feelings just in general. Because like you mentioned earlier, we don't really have communication with other people when we're locked up. And so, like I'm thinking about what you were saying about my English and how my language and the words that I use now, they've, changed and improved, right? And I'm thinking about how I lacked communication skills when I was, in those facilities. And I think it had to do also with the lack of communication among everyone, those detentions. And so, going back to like what I learned, I think that's one of the things that makes me reflect now on just, building community and how to express ourselves through like different, forms. And I really appreciated that from you.
Well, thank you. And I love, I'm now that you're saying that there's another time, and I love that you brought art in, because I think that art is so important to learn, and art is such an important place to express yourself. And there was another time, I don't know if you remember this, and I actually haven't brought you this picture yet, and I have to bring it. We met at Homeboy, and there was a whole group of people, and we like traced our hands, and there was this whole art piece. I just recently, we were looking through like archives, and I saw that picture, and yeah, I mean, I think particularly for people who've experienced just trauma and have experienced, have bad experiences, have experienced poverty, foster care, actually being able to do art, being able to do theater, being able to do visual arts is something that can open up, I mean, I know also that you're very special, so I'd like to say that your success is my success, but I'd like to say also that your success is absolutely your success. And I don't think art was the only thing that made you. I think, I don't think that you're just a force of nature. And I've heard you speak, and you are really good at telling your story. So, I think about how far you've come since when we would meet in that gym on those Thursdays. And what do you think, like from where you were then? I know there must be a lot of things, like what had to happen for your life to get to where it is now? Like, because you're at Smith College, like you're getting a master's and you're going to be a social worker. Like you were in assisted living, you were in a sober living, I think, situation, right? Like what were the stages that, what would have to happen so that could happen? Because I want the people who are listening to this to hear that these stories are possible, but they also have to understand what has to happen so that this could happen.
Yeah, so I think for me and I think this also applies to a lot of people, it is about the system. And I believe that if we have a support system that supports that change and also is interested in supporting us and our goals in life, then, that could happen. And
when you say support, because I know what it means, because what can you be, like, I really want people to hear this and say, oh, the youth in foster care needs support. So I love that you brought up housing, because I think housing is a huge issue, particularly in Los Angeles. It's so expensive. It's so hard. I know it's so hard to fill out an application and get accepted. So housing, what does support look like? Can you be a little bit more specific about that?
Yeah. So, everybody has different goals. And for me, it was that I wanted to continue my education, right? Go to higher education. And so that may look different for someone else. Maybe someone else wants to go into cosmetology. Mm-hmm. But how do we support that? And how do we support those goals in the interest of those individuals? And how do we provide resources for that as well?
I love that. Yeah, I know also what I've learned from a lot of the youth who have amazing goals and desires. I don't know how it was for you. Like, maybe you can talk a little bit. How did you get to getting your undergraduate? Because I know a lot of the youth, they don't even know where to go. They don't know how to apply. They don't know. You even shared with me a resource for someone else who I know to get money from probation, which I never even knew about. And I've been doing this work for a long time. So how did you get to that first leap to get to go to Riverside?
So I actually enrolled in a community college while I was still incarcerated.
Oh, amazing. Not amazing that you're incarcerated. Amazing that you...
amazing, right? That I started college. And so I remember I was walking back to the dorm from school one day, and a probation officer actually told me, you guys should, keep going to school. And then I was like, how? I'm like, I don't have money for that. And then he was like, there's money out there, And so I think those type of conversations should be happening. And also, how do we prepare, the youth and support, what they're passionate about. And that's what I mean. And so I think it's also about mobilizing resources for youth.
Absolutely. I love two things of that story. First of all, we can have a long conversation about should we, I don't think any youth should ever be incarcerated, but this is the system we have. In that system that we want to negotiate, change, have better housing, there are good things like college. And I know that I love it when youth who are in the system can use the system and what the system is offering. But what I also heard and I love, and this is for people who are listening, we all have resources. Everyone, you have resources. Patty, you gave me a resource for someone else, right? Our job is to share those resources. And our job is to be that PO who says, hey, there's money out there. And if you know how to get it, help people like you helped me, right? I know I always tell people exactly like, you have a dream, you want to learn cosmetics or whatever, let's look online and see where that is. I really hope that when people listen to this, they will understand that being present and giving back doesn't always mean money, although we love money, right? And it doesn't always mean tons and tons of hours or tutoring. It's sharing the knowledge that you have. It's sharing access to resources, which sometimes just means sitting down with someone on a laptop, right? Like I know it was someone who wasn't in your group a few years later who we just set hours in my office so she could navigate how to find things online. So my invitation and my hope for anyone who is listening, think what your resources are and how can you share them? How can you tell someone about them? And sometimes it's one conversation with a PO, like there's money out there, which clearly you found because you graduated from Riverside. You're now in Smith, which is just brilliant. And just a fun fact, my late mother went to Smith and was a phenomenal social worker. So I think that's so important. I'm taking away two things is sharing your resources and listening to people's desires, because what I know to be true from those Thursdays, you all had very clear desires. Sometimes you would say, I don't know, miss, but you knew what you wanted. I don't know if you always wanted to be a social worker, but your desires and interests are there. And I think that's something that should be celebrated.
Yeah. And I think also like, for adults and people who work with other, youth who are incarcerated, I think it's about changing the perception and also the expectations of those communities. And because if we see them as doomed, then we may not expect them, to go to college or things like that. And so I think part of that has to do with not having, not having those conversations because our expectations may not be, positive.
Yeah. Well, I think if anybody can be the shining light of a role model of what someone who, and you didn't even make a big mistake, like someone who was incarcerated for some stupid reason, right? Like that also people don't understand. Like youth who are incarcerated are not incarcerated for huge, horrible things. Sometimes it's for very silly, stupid things, but can achieve amazing things. Like, and I'm just going to say, I so applaud you and are so proud of you. And I can't wait to see where you're going to be in another 10 years. And you are the role model of anything is possible. By no means do I want people to think that it's easy, because it's a really hard haul. And I know that you've had a lot of people helping you, and I know that there are systems that helped you, but it's still hard, even when you have support. And everybody wants to see change. And I don't think that people acknowledge enough how incredibly difficult it is. So I see you and I so appreciate your story. And what's something you would want to tell the people who are listening? Like, what's something you would want them to hear from your voice?
Just to continue to instill hope on the people that they work with, or if anybody who has been incarcerated is listening to this podcast, then I would suggest for them to keep knocking on every door and don't give up. And just, keep reaching out to people and build a community.
Oh, I love that. Knocking on heaven's door. Just keep knocking on that door. Yeah. I know, and I can say it's a very different story, but for people who are running nonprofits and people who are trying to do good in the world, when someone doesn't want to support you, I always say that. Keep knocking on the door. Keep asking for the money. If not from them, from someone else. And I've had that with probation. They don't let you go here, then let them go there. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Patty. This was wonderful. And I look forward to having you back, because there's lots of stories that you were part of. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for choosing Thursdays in Juvie with Naomi Ackerman in partnership with Advot. I know you have many choices to listen to, and I appreciate you giving us your time today. Time is precious, which is exactly why we must pay attention to individuals, particularly youth, who are serving time. I hope hearing these stories will help you see the youth Advot works with as the amazing humans they are, and not just judge them as random case numbers. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please share the podcast from our website, www.advot.org, with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you'll join us again, because the more we listen, the better we understand. The better we understand, the more compassion we have. Compassion changes the world. Listening is the first step. In gratitude.